Starting today, my sister and her husband are moving in with us. We didn't want any strangers staying with us, but suddenly John and my sister's husband barged into our house. John was upset because he had to leave. He said it was because he and my sister were getting divorced. John accused me of treating him like a servant all this time, which he said was emotional abuse. My sister-in-law exaggeratedly pretended to cry and said she couldn't take it anymore, so she was divorcing John. She claimed she deserved our house in the divorce because she had endured their marriage for 2 years. John complained about the $3,300 in living expenses that someone would need to pay. The next day, I moved into a luxury facility worth $2 million and got a lot of frantic calls from John and his sister. My name is Anna Smith, and I recently turned 40. I work as a day trader and investor, buying and selling currencies and stocks. Thanks to this work, I've built up a decent amount of wealth. Despite having a congenital illness that isn't life-threatening but requires caution, doctors have advised me against overexerting myself and cautioned about the risks of childbirth. My parents didn't shield me from this reality. They taught me from a young age to confront my illness with determination. My father, who worked at a brokerage firm, passed down his knowledge of stocks, which has allowed me to make a living from it. My husband, John, is 30 years old, 10 years younger than me, and we've been married for 2 years. We met when he started working as a waiter at my favorite restaurant. Initially, I just saw him as a cute guy at work, but over time we grew closer, transitioning from friends to lovers. Before long, marriage was on our minds. Worried that I couldn't have children, I initially turned down his proposal. But John reassured me, saying, "I want to spend my life with you, Anna. That's why I proposed. If I wanted kids, I would have chosen someone else. Don't you trust me?" I was overwhelmed with happiness and tears when I decided to accept John's proposal. Shortly after we married, John surprised me by saying, "I'll stay home and take care of everything. I don't dislike my job as a waiter, but wouldn't it be easier for you if I handled things this way? Plus, you know I'm good at cooking." It's true. John has a knack for cooking and has always had a passion for food. Even though he wasn't formally trained, he picked up a lot just by observing and learning. That's actually how we first connected. My brother works in the restaurant industry, and when John found out, he was eager to talk about his dream of owning his own place someday. When I questioned what would happen to his dream if he became a stay-at-home husband, John responded firmly, "Do you think being at home means I can't pursue my own goals? That's a narrow view. Taking care of the home is important work. Besides, I want to be with you as much as possible." His eyes sparkled with sincerity, and I realized how much he valued our time together. When he sweetly proposed the idea of him staying at home, I couldn't resist agreeing. Initially, things went smoothly with me focusing on work, while John took care of the house. But gradually, things changed. The neatness of our newly living room gave way to clutter from comic books and video games. John started spending nights playing games in front of the TV, flipping his schedule upside down. "John, this has been getting out of hand lately," I finally confronted him. "Yeah, sorry. I'm really into this game right now. Can you let it slide until I finish it, please?" He pleaded, and reluctantly, I agreed to let him finish, but it didn't stop there. He moved on to the next game, leaving the house in disarray. When we first got married, John was meticulous about cleaning and making our home comfortable. He was such a great stay-at-home husband. What happened? I put up with it for a few months, but one day I couldn't hold back any longer. "John, we need to talk." "Huh? What about?" I felt like I was dealing with a grown man-child instead of my husband. It was like I was a mom telling her kid to finish homework before playing games. "We're married and equal partners. You chose to stay home, so please keep your end of the deal. I'm not saying you can't have fun, but finish your responsibilities first." I laid it all out, and John paused before replying, "Understood. I'm sorry for slacking. I'll only play after I finish my chores, I promise." True to his word, John resumed his duties as a stay-at-home husband, but something had changed. He seemed constantly unhappy. Before, he used to cook with joy and take pride in keeping the house tidy. Now he rushed through tasks and retreated to his room. Instead of gaming in the living room and reading comics on the sofa, he played online games in isolation. More and more, John would say things like, "Sorry, I have a dungeon raid tonight. Can you eat alone? I'll wash the dishes later." I'd watch him go to his room while I ate dinner by myself. Even if the food tasted good, eating alone made it less enjoyable. But since he was doing his housework as promised, I didn't say anything. It wasn't just dinner. "I have a guild battle tonight. Not sure when I'll be back. Go to bed without me," he'd say, and then wouldn't return to our bedroom. This happened almost every night. During the day, he'd often go out alone. If I asked where he was going, he'd just say shopping and wouldn't come back until evening. He always made sure to prepare my meals and leave them ready, which started to feel like a mocking gesture. He took care of all the chores, cleaning, laundry, cooking, so I felt I couldn't complain, but this wasn't a family life. It felt like having a live-in housekeeper. We hardly spoke anymore. I would eat my prepared, cold meals alone, change into freshly washed clothes, and sit in the spotless house, feeling deeply lonely. In those moments I often thought that being alone might actually feel less lonely. I'd find myself staring at John's closed bedroom door, tears welling up from the sadness. Yet I held on to hope that things would improve. I believed we'd return to our normal happy life together, so I endured silently. Then after about a year of this lonely routine, John suddenly dropped a bombshell. Starting today, my sister and her husband are moving in with us. Can't strangers find another place? I protested as John and his sister-in-law's husband barged into our house. I was completely taken aback. I distinctly remembered when John had moved in with me after we got married. His sister and her husband had found their own apartment. What do you mean, John? Are you moving out to go back to your old apartment? I blurted out in confusion. The three of them exchanged glances and burst into laughter. No, I'm staying here with my sister and her husband. You're the one who's moving out, John clarified, leaving me utterly confused. Why do I have to leave this house? I asked, bewildered by the sudden turn of events. Because we can no longer live together as a married couple, John claimed, accusing me of treating him like a maid and emotionally abusing him. That's awful, John, my sister-in-law chimed in dramatically, pretending to wipe away tears that weren't there. But I can't take it anymore. I'm divorcing you. I'll be taking the house and the property division. I endured this life for 2 years, so I deserve it, right? Yes, that's right, John affirmed, encouraged by his sister's support. Meanwhile, her husband stood by, smirking at the scene unfolding before him. I began to piece together what was happening. It seemed John had a plan all along, to charm me into marriage and then orchestrate a divorce when it suited him. Just as he hinted earlier, he had his sights set on various things he could gain from our relationship. I never envisioned myself getting married. Knowing I couldn't have children and feeling average in appearance and personality, I had resigned myself to living independently, focusing on my career and hobbies. I had some friends and maintained a normal relationship with my parents and brother. After my dad retired, my parents moved to his hometown, where my brother also settled with his wife. He had worked in the restaurant industry and eventually started a small restaurant with his wife, choosing to live on the same spacious property as our parents. I was born and raised in our town near the city, so it felt more like returning home than just visiting. When I visit my parents, brother, sister-in-law, and nephews, I feel a sense of belonging and never experience loneliness. So marrying someone 10 years younger was unexpected even for me. Looking back, I realize I was played. Listening to John and his sister argue, I couldn't help but chuckle at my own gullibility. Deep down, I had sensed this might happen. John's sudden and intense affection felt like a storybook romance. Initially cautious, I eventually succumbed to his puppy-like charm. Now I needed a plan. How could I turn the tables? How could I make them taste their own medicine? As a day trader, I excel at reading situations, anticipating outcomes, and steering things in a positive direction. I've always been successful, and I knew I could handle this situation too. No doubt about it, I would handle it. As I pondered my next move, John and his sister continued to hurl insults at me. Why are you so quiet? Hurry up and pack your things. Get ready to leave. Playing along, I replied calmly, all right, I'll leave. I began packing only my essentials, clothes, my work laptop, and a few personal items. Here, fill this out. John handed me a piece of paper. It was divorce papers with his sister and her husband already listed as witnesses. I'll take care of filing these. I'll reach out if there's anything else I need, John said with a mocking smile, accompanied by his sister and her husband. They watched as I gathered my belongings and left my own condo. I had a place to stay for now. I would go there to gather my thoughts. I was sure they would have more to say soon, but I would handle it when the time came. I drove away from the condo, heading towards my destination. When I arrived, I had a peaceful night's sleep and woke up feeling refreshed. I slept in later than usual and enjoyed a leisurely brunch. The food here was always delicious. It had been over 2 years since I had visited this place, especially since getting married. I started by messaging John on WhatsApp, informing him of my current whereabouts and letting him know that my lawyer would handle everything from now on. The phone rang almost immediately, quicker than I had expected. What is going on here? I heard John's sister yelling in the background, her words slightly muffled. What do you mean? I replied calmly. Don't pretend you don't know. Where are you? John demanded, his voice tense. I'm here because I was kicked out. Is that a problem? I replied evenly. That's not what I meant. John's frustration was clear. That's a high-end resort, a members-only place. Why are you there? Because I'm a member, I stated matter-of-factly. You never told me that, John protested. Exactly, because it wasn't relevant, I explained. As John said, it's a prestigious place, not just a hotel, but a luxury resort with lifelong care services. There's even a hospital nearby. It's known for its exclusivity, with an entry fee starting at $2 million, which made headlines. Why did you become a member there? John asked, bewildered. Because I invested in the membership, I replied calmly. On the other end, John sounded baffled. Someone suggested you should leave, right? So I decided to live here. If you want to stay in the house, go ahead. Just remember to pay the $3,300 monthly rent. But that's your house. What do you mean rent? I've decided to sell it. I've been considering this for a while, and I won't be living there anymore, I explained calmly. I never planned on getting married, and I bought this place to ensure I wouldn't burden anyone in my old age. I had already purchased the condo I lived in until yesterday, but I knew I had to secure this spot quickly because prime facilities like this rarely become available. I took the opportunity with both hands. My plan was to move in here when I'm older. It's a bit far from the city, so retiring here full-time while I can still work felt premature. I kept it as a vacation home, visiting occasionally to unwind, but I kept it a secret from everyone except my accountant and lawyer. Give me that place too, John suddenly demanded. I should get half of it. How convenient for him. I was astonished by his audacity. I have no intention of giving it to you. From now on, please communicate with me through my lawyer. You have their contact information, right? Goodbye. With that, I hung up the phone and turned it off. I decided to head to the spa to unwind, not just from the stress of yesterday, but from the past 2 years altogether. To my surprise, John and his sister's family showed up at the hotel the next day. John argued at the front desk, insisting he had the right to enter because he was family. However, I had already instructed the staff not to allow anyone in without my explicit permission. This place was highly professional and respected my wishes. Initially, I contemplated ignoring them completely, but I didn't want to create any trouble for the facility. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet them in the hotel lobby, a public place with concierge nearby in case I needed assistance. When I asked what they wanted, John smiled and said, "Anna, you're so secretive. Why didn't you tell me about this place? Why keep it a secret?" "Yeah, why hide this from us?" his sister chimed in, echoing his smile. Looking at them together, they bore a striking resemblance not just in appearance but also in their manipulative nature. "We're no longer family, so there's no reason to inform you. Please leave now, you're causing a disturbance." "We're still married," John retorted firmly. "No, we're not married anymore. I filed for divorce yesterday at the county office," I informed John calmly, reminding him that it was actually me who had taken that step. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, seemingly forgetting that he had initiated the divorce proceedings and handed me the papers. "Don't worry, divorced couples can remarry without waiting 6 months," his sister chimed in with a tidbit of information she had picked up somewhere, looking hopeful. "No, thank you," I replied firmly. I stood up and walked back to my room, disregarding their attempts to follow me. The concierge intervened to stop them. "I won't give up. I'll come here every day to show you how much I love you," John exclaimed, determinedly. "You're so slick, John," I muttered under my breath as I walked away, feeling drained by their pathetic display. Without delay, I contacted my lawyer to take immediate action. This situation was escalating faster than I had anticipated, and their relentless behavior was wearing me down. I hadn't expected them to resort to this just a day after I left. They seemed determined to pursue pointless endeavors. John and his sister's family began appearing at the facility daily, lingering in the lobby, waiting for me. My lawyer swiftly filed for a restraining order, but then they took it to a new extreme. "Anna deceived me into marriage. I demand compensation," John declared. He claimed ignorance about my inability to have children and insisted that if he had known, he would never have married me. Therefore, he threatened to accuse me of marriage fraud if I didn't agree to compensate him. I handed over a specific recording to my lawyer. I proposed to Anna because I wanted to live my life with her. If I wanted kids, I would have chosen someone else from the start. "Don't you trust me?" These were John's exact words when he proposed to me, and I had them recorded. John was furious, demanding to know why I had such a recording. It was simply due to my cautious nature. I'd always kept a recorder running when I sensed something significant might happen. It's a habit born out of the belief that you never know what might occur in life. Initially, I trusted John and would listen to this recording alone, reflecting on how I felt at that moment. Little did I know it would prove so valuable. Now John was accusing me of forcing him to quit his job after marriage and do all the housework, alleging emotional abuse and demanding compensation. He even threatened to report me to the police for coercion if I didn't comply. To counter this, I submitted another crucial piece of evidence. "I'll stay at home and take care of everything. I don't hate my job as a waiter, but wouldn't it be easier for you to work this way? You know I'm good at cooking." These were John's own words, declaring his desire to be a stay-at-home husband, and I had them recorded as well. John's next attempt was to claim emotional distress from being secretly recorded. threatening to report me for illegal recording if I didn't pay compensation. However, there's no specific crime called illegal recording. While certain actions related to recordings can lead to penalties, simply making a recording itself is not illegal under most circumstances. Undeterred, John then demanded compensation for the divorce itself, despite being the one who initiated it without valid grounds and handing me completed divorce papers. I had recorded that conversation as well. My lawyer explained that, considering the situation, it was more likely that John owed me compensation instead. Finally, John tearfully pleaded for a division of assets. I agreed to consider his request and promised to assess the assets fairly. I need you to vacate the condo. Once we've evaluated everything, we can meet at the lawyer's office. They left without further protest, allowing me to sell all the condo's furnishings and list the property for sale. As I had predicted, due to the increasing property values, it sold for a higher amount than initially anticipated. When I presented the total asset figures, John and his family were initially hopeful, assuming they'd get a substantial portion. So, I did half of this. John eagerly asked upon hearing the total in the tens of millions. Not quite. These figures reflect only assets acquired before our marriage, I clarified through my lawyer. John's expression turned to anger when he received a document showing his share as zero. The lawyer patiently explained, "The bulk of these assets were acquired before your marriage, John, so legally you have no claim to them. Regarding post-marriage income, you were entitled to half. But after deducting living expenses, necessary costs, and the compensation Anna claimed, your share amounts to a negative value." "Why do I owe compensation?" John demanded. The lawyer then presented the evidence. John had been unfaithful. His affair was with a woman he met through an online game. John had divulged details about me, mentioning my age and health condition, claiming he would inherit all my assets if anything happened to me, and boasting about his unrestricted spending. The woman didn't take him seriously but went along with it for the money he provided. She agreed to testify under the condition that I wouldn't seek compensation from her. "And here's another thing," she said. I played a recording of the girl's testimony where she confirmed John's statements about my health condition and his cynical remarks about having a child with me. "Consider yourself lucky you're not facing legal consequences. Thanks to you, I've had some interesting dreams and enjoyed good food. Let's call it even, and I won't pursue this any further," I told John firmly. He hung his head in defeat and accepted the outcome. Thus, my brief marriage came to a messy end. I haven't kept track of what happened to John and his sister's family afterward, nor do I have any interest in knowing, as long as they stay out of my life. That's all that matters to me now. Dwelling on it would only prolong my misery. The emotional toll was significant, but thankfully I have the resources and time to heal. I decided to take a world cruise on a luxury liner, where I met people from all over the globe, explored numerous destinations, and had a truly wonderful time. There were moments when I felt a spark with some individuals, but memories of John held me back. I was determined not to let myself get hurt again. With that resolve, I returned home and began building a new life for myself. For a while, I enjoyed a leisurely life at the resort hotel, but soon I grew restless. At 40, I realized I was still young. Living with John, who was much younger, had made me overly conscious of my age. During my year-long cruise, I met a spirited woman over 80 who was still seeking love and adventure. Half her age, I wondered why I should give up on everything. Despite the disappointment with John, loving someone had been enjoyable. Why let him spoil the joy and possibility of loving again? That's how I started to feel. Just then, my phone lit up with a new message. It was from a man I had met on the cruise. He mentioned he would be visiting the U.S. soon and asked if we could have dinner together. He had been traveling with his high school-aged daughter on the ship, and we had connected well, spending time together at various ports. It had given me a glimpse into what it might feel like to have a daughter. I remembered cherishing those moments and replied eagerly, agreeing to meet. As I took this step forward from the midpoint of my life, I felt a renewed sense of excitement and possibility.